I'm going to take a little walk here, and then eventually I'll do the prayers again. Even though there's government people willing it down. And crooks all together. They're all crooks, actually. So I got my other lamps, and they were a poor purchase. So what happened is, when I initially started looking to purchase, they cursed me, and they shot the wad of curses on the original purchase. All right, so it was like, again, I wouldn't even give them away as gifts. It's just they look vintage, I guess. So I don't know. And they're smaller, a lot smaller than the ones I purchased. So these are marketed as Christian gifts, and the other ones were marketed as, I guess, a Jewish company. So the Jewish people won. Right. So I did get, though I did in that purchase get 5 bottles of like 1.5 ounces of Jerusalem olive oil, or Israeli olive oil. So that worked out. I'll burn that, not this next go around, but after that. Nah, I wouldn't give them away as gifts. And I bought paint, clear acrylic from Walmart, and it put a white hue on it. It happens to people, but I was hoping what's going to happen to me. It doesn't happen to everybody. Right, so I don't know what the conditions are that caused it, but so I have to return that. Because you have to coat it with something, or the oil will seep through the clay. It's not, it's not glazed. And even the glazed one on the bottom, they didn't glaze it, and it comes through on the bottom. I'll have to get some of that rubberized paint and tape it off, and then just paint the bottom. So that'll work good. It'll be nice to have a rubberized bottom. All right, so what happened that night? I can't tell you whether anybody was racial profiling or not, because again, it would take a larger investigation. But what I can tell you is what they did is they instituted a high-intensity patrol zone. You'll see that in the news every so often, or in your announcements for your community, and in the news sometimes they'll do it too, I think. And what is your sheriff or your police chief announced that on this road and that road there's going to be a high-intensity operation. They announce it for a couple reasons. One, so grandma doesn't get freaked out. Right. Because there's like 30 police cars up and down the street. Not that many, but like 10 police cars. So they let them know that that's going to happen. Right. And again, they don't want you to drink and drive. They don't want to have to pull you over. So you get a little notice there. Okay. So there is a deterrence in telling you, and it also helps the community wrap its head around what's actually happening. So that's not out of the ordinary. They had all these extra people there. So what they did is they just turned it into a high-intensity patrol zone. They don't have to tell you that it's there. So, right, but the probable cause, I read the articles and like, so, it's craftily written to like confuse and cast stones. And I'm sure there's racial profiling somewhere. I mean, obviously, but even Latinos racially profile white people. So again, it is what it is. So the probable cause is that you did something, right? Now, when they pull you over for failure to maintain lane, they're usually trying to tell if you're drunk or something like that. Well, again, if you go through those zones, not every police department does it the same way. But if you go through those zones and you're following too close, you'll be pulled over. If you go through that zone and you stray over the line, you'll be pulled over. Now, how it all went down after that, I can't tell you. But if you don't have a license, you're not even supposed to be on the road. Let's wake up. Right. I didn't say the situation is fair where you come here and you get used and abused by an employer. I didn't tell you that was fair. So again, but there are other hazards. Right. I mean, it's just, he didn't have, well, they didn't know he didn't have a license. But he went over the line. Right. In a high-intensity patrol zone. And they call it other things also, like interdiction zone. Right. Now here's another one, okay? Let's say that time of the evening they're doing that and they pull over all Latinos. You first have to prove that anybody else was on their own but Latinos. So again, see how it's being spoken? That time of the evening, the shift change may have went on and they were all on the road and they were all Latinos. Everybody else is at home. Right. But I'm not telling you that it didn't happen. They're allowed to detain you if they have reason to believe that you're a non-citizen. And that you're unlawfully present. If they're, again, they have to work with ICE to figure that out. Now, if they fax them the warrant later, that's okay. If they have a conversation, ICE says, yeah, okay, detain that person, they're allowed to do that. This idea, they faxed the warrant later. Right. You can get a verbal. If you get a verbal from ICE to detain you, they can detain you. It's just the way the world works. There's probable cause that you committed some sort of infraction, and of course, who strays over the lane? Okay, he wasn't drinking, but he strayed over the lane. I like to see the vehicles they were driving, too. Right. Sometimes you see people in a vehicle, one tire, they got 4 different tires. And again, they have poverty, and I brought that up before, that's just how that, it's a shame. But again, if you're driving a vehicle that looks like it's barely on the road, they might pull you over just for that. I'm not saying they're driving a nasty vehicle, but they could have been. So there may have been reason to wonder what was going on in there. Well, because when you work in law enforcement, you don't, again, there's a certain level of profiling that's law enforcement profiling. So if I look at your car and it looks like a hoopty and there's some other things going on, again, we put that together and we pull you over just to make sure that there's nothing else going on. Again, through law enforcement experience, if every car that was red was a Bloods car, and there's drugs in there, and we got guns, and then you go over the line, of course you're going to get pulled over. But you could be in your red hot rod that you bought because you like the color red, and you're not a Bloods person. So again, but that's how that works. So I don't know what they were driving. I don't know what the situation was in that county. I don't know anything. All I know is there's probable cause to pull you over, and if ICE gives them a verbal to detain you, then they have the right to detain you. And it doesn't matter when they get the warrant. Obviously, if you go to court and they get rid of your case and then they detain you, then they have a right to do it the other way also. Does that make sense? So these people have active cases. They say, no, they don't have an active case because they're not going to prevail, and they should have never been let in to begin with. So that's what they're saying. That the Biden administration let you enter into a process that you would never win. And they should never have done it because there was not probable cause that you would prevail. In other words, they don't have to let you apply for amnesty if they believe that it's not real or that it doesn't fit the requirements. So if you get pulled over and your case comes up and they look at it and they go, well, no, that person's got to go for whatever reason. Again, there were other reasons also. And again, a lot of these allegations, when we eventually get somewhere, there is an order of removal somewhere, or there was some sort of infraction, or they disappeared. Again, remember, they're supposed to stay in contact, some of these people, not all of them, but they're supposed to stay in contact with ICE and give them an address. So if your last address was Washington State, and you tell the officer you live in Georgia, you've just absconded from ICE or from the immigration process, which is probably a lot of it. They're not telling you that because they probably doesn't want people to update their stuff, because they don't have a chance of passing the amnesty thing in the end. Got to realize the Democrats fed you a bunch of shit. You never had a chance of staying here, but the system was so cluttered, you got to stay here, which makes it worse because then you set up a life and you're like, oh my God, I got kids, I got this. Right. So again, somebody may have racial profile because it happens. The quality of law enforcement officers is not what it used to be. And again, they used to racial profile also. Right. But again, it could be worse today. But the idea is they do have probable cause. They don't have to have the warrant in hand when they detain you. All right. Well, they called ICE or DHS or whoever it was, and they ran you in the computer and said, go ahead, detain. Right. I imagine, maybe not. I don't know. Because they usually don't take you in for, like, you straight over the line. If you don't have a license, they'll take you in. They can take you in. I would never drive without a license. I'm going to check my license date after, because when I hear it, I'm going, oh my God, let me check the date of my license, make sure it's still good. I know it's still good for a few more years, but the reality is that most people, again, driving without a license is deportable. You're not supposed to be on the highway without a license. Do you have insurance? If you hit somebody, what happens? Oops. Use your own insurance? Gringo? Right. So again, what you're playing out is BS. First off, you're not supposed to be here. Second, Biden administration put you into a system that it's going to take 4 years for you to get anywhere. That's why I say let them work. We don't want them sitting here on their hands for 4 years getting in trouble. Right. Right. Which happened anyway. Okay, so the officer didn't know that you didn't have a license, but he or she didn't pull you over for not having a license. They pulled you over for straying over that line because why? Because it's a high intensity high intensity patrol area is what they call them. They call them other things too, like I said, interdiction zone. Well, because if they have all those officers there, they didn't want to waste it. So they said, okay, now we'll just do a high intensity patrol zone. You see, they don't always announce it. You'll see it all over the place. Right. In fact, they did that to me in Oklahoma City. They were actually causing me to drive faster. I finally figured out what they were doing. Right. By intensely being around me and doing all this crazy stuff and casting spells. I went over the speed. I went too fast, but they all turned at a certain point. And I went straight, but I was going too fast. And I drove, before they started, I drove real slow. Real slow, 10 miles under. They think they're funny, man. They're psychological operators, these cops, these dirty cops, and they know it. They're sickos. They're devils. But not one of them can articulate what I just articulated. But they're wonderful. They're amazing. Right. Garbage, every last one of them. That's why they do that. They can't do anything else right. They'll be a crook. Right. So again, there's probable cause existed, just based upon to pull that person over. Probable cause existed to pull them over based upon going over the line. Maybe you don't think it's fair, but I'm white and they did it to me. Right. It's just it has to do with where it has to do with generally it has to do with where you are at the given moment. Right. If you're in an interdiction zone, if you're in a high intensity patrol area, they'll no punches pulled. Right. Kind of like broken windows, but a little different. Right. But for all I know, they are racist and they were profiled. I don't know. But again, what they're saying in a news article, you don't have any evidence that we get those cases thrown out. Right. But I mean, who drives without a license? Because they can't get a license, right? Because they're not supposed to be here. So again, it goes back to that original thing. Get mad at Biden. Get mad at the people you work for. Tell them to hire citizens and leave you alone and let you work in Mexico. They're willing you up here, believe me. Which could crash Mexico to bring you up here. You understand? We may never be able to fix Mexico until we block all those businesses up here from willing the cheap labor up here. It's a metaphysic. They're devils. That's very... So again, there's nothing in that news article that says anything was done wrong. I mean, yeah, it could have been better, but I have no idea what went wrong. I guess the leak of information. And then if they call it off because of the leak of information, which may be what you wanted, unless you were already in the area. Okay, yeah. If you didn't show up yet, you should have called it off because then they wouldn't believe the information if you weren't in the area. Right. But, if they already had seen you and knew you were in the area, then I guess a show of force kind of thing, a patrol zone, like we're not afraid or something would have worked. I don't know. Right. So I guess that's just that. It's just well, because they always make these arguments that are so stupid. Like they're not even supposed to be here. Because I said, they don't have a license. Well, they can't get a license. Well, I wouldn't drive a car. I'd ride a bicycle. I really would. I have no idea what's going on with Musk, but it looks like they're going to take him out. I mean, well, who knows? They might do that, but I'm just, they're going to crash him again. They're going to take him down another level, crash him again. Well, I tried to help him. All right. Well, the answer, somebody's talking here, but the answer to Palestine has always been a hearts and minds type of program, but you have to really know what you're doing to do it. Right? You have to care. Right. Yeah, but when you don't do it the right way, then you aid and abet Iran and aid and abet Hamas. Just because you hunt Hamas doesn't mean you're not helping them, maintain hold on the Gaza. And I just have no idea why all those tunnels exist. I wouldn't have. Right. Even while I'm, maybe trying to help them and give them something that they can have that's tangible as far as their, some sort of government. So probably the best scenario is to have like states, like within the United States. So, you already have something like that, but you could make it a little more official. So they are, they control the state of whatever Gaza and the state of, or South Gaza, whatever you decide you want to do, or North Gaza or Middle Gaza. Or West Bank. So they control little areas, and it's their state. But of course, there is federal supremacy. Sorry. So you give them some autonomy by allowing a state government. And again, working it so it's legitimate. They have to meet benchmarks before they can be a government. You can't be a terrorist organization and say you're a government. So yeah, I mean, they're not horrible. They're a little kind of, but they're more like a knick-knack than an oil lamp. I mean, they're really small, but I mean, they're workable. They would work. Right. I got 5 of them, and the shipping was the expensive part, and I didn't even get it wasn't even a fast shipping. Yeah, I think I got the same time frame for the slow shipping. Right. The other ones, they buzzed here real quick, and they were nice. They had a candle in them. I had to get the candle out of it. It wasn't really that difficult. And they're glazed. But they make a natural one. I'm just trying to figure out is it worth it to buy the natural one. I haven't found a coating that I could use yet. Coating I just tried to use hazed up. Put a white film on the wine. I heard something say, or not say, but the inference was just do one. Make sure it works first. Maybe in the company, who knows? I painted one and had a haze on. I got to return it. I was hoping it didn't do that. And it could be the weather. You just don't know because the company doesn't know. Some people have it haze up and that's it. We return it when it does that. No, I was noticing everything yesterday. Pam Vonby's photos that the close-up photos they're using. Her makeup sweated off a little bit. So I knew they were hitting her. Right. Now, as far as Loomer, she just might be a useful idiot. We don't know. What they said inside is that there's somebody they want to be the attorney general that's MAGA or something. And they think that person will be appointed if they push Bondi out. But from what I heard inside is that's not the goal of the people manipulating them, is to put somebody else in. So if they push Bondi out, they're not going to get the person. The same thing that happened to Musk and everyone else. If you push Bondi out, you're not going to get the person you think you're going to put in. It's going to be somebody. It could be a deep stater. Because I'm not up there to look. I don't know who or what over there. So you're all being manipulated by the deep state. Best looking Popo vehicle. What's Michigan look like? Oh, Florida used like a Corvette. But chumps. They actually owed me. They should have set me up in a great life and it would have been over. It almost happened, and then somebody operated my mother and it didn't happen. If I'd have bought that house, I just sold it already in Cape Coral. Wouldn't have stayed there that long. But it would have given me a safe place to be for a while. And again, I was going to pay $110,000 for it. It's still probably worth around $200, $250. Probably went up to $400,000. Well, I don't know if it did, but I have to look, see where they were at. What, Michigan? I don't think Michigan's going to win. That's just like what is it? It's like a wagon. Looks pretty cool, but I don't think Michigan's got a lot of people voting, that's all. How much you pay me, DeSantis, to win? How do you vote? Oh, I can see it. It probably is out of colors, like every other Florida chippy vehicle is painted like tan and brown or something. Not chippy, Florida. Fippy. Florida hybrids, all the Fips. All right, we'll vote for Florida. Oh, actually, I like that one. What is that? I like that green color, Wyoming. Yeah, but the cars are maintained. Oh, Virginia. Actually, Virginia's Mustang looks pretty cool. Maybe if I vote for it, you'll lose. The one with the bison here in Oklahoma. Yeah, what is that one? Yeah. It's Pennsylvania look like. Now, I should have actually been like an explorer, a law enforcement explorer. Then my life would have been probably saved. I don't know if they had it back then. Nah, I was done dirty. My own family is like whack. I didn't know anything. I was asleep. Or I'd have been like, knowing what was going on. Like my brother knows that people are manipulated. So he lives the lie. Like I was making my own choices when I was a kid. After he beat me up so much. Which of this is a fruit? Apple. I just voted for Florida. Yo, DeSantis. I do admit it looks better on the Corvette than on their cars. I would have changed the color long ago. Yeah, tan or some shit. I should have showed you all that. I could have proved it. Now we have the Indiana operation. 2 incredible years of insanity. So many people are so quick to abandon president. What is she talking about? Like now she feels she's saying this because everybody's like, what do you all? She'll, no, I still support Trump even though I'm screwing everything up. That loomer. They're going to take Loomer out. She canned too many people. Well, they paid her. Like, you know, it's just crazy. Gavin Newsom mounting a legitimate threat to Lindsey Graham in South Carolina. You know how conservative their governor is? He's probably one of the most conservative, really conservative governors in the United States. Right. It's like he runs it like the DOJ. Like, you know, in a legitimately run, like a U.S. Attorney's office, it's pretty tough. Right. But those are few and far between. Just show respect. I mean, again, don't get your head so big because you get to pull everybody over and arrest them and deport them. So again, always keep your mind in check. Right. And you just articulate it. Just keep your mind in check. There's no reason to have that, some BS mindset. I heard some chatter that they were saying stuff. Well, it's called deterrence. Karen Bass, I don't think they want to disrupt the summer camp, but it's called deterrence. We don't want them to come here because we don't want to have to deport them. So again, it's saving them from starting a life that's going to be disrupted at some point. Right. Well, we can start legal immigration someday if we can fix this. Right, there's obviously gangs and narcotics distribution going on around that park. Right. Well, I understand, she's got a job to do. I helped the temples dot the earth. I gave credibility to LDS Church over the years. Right. Actually, it could be me. I don't know. I just say what God tells me to say. Right. So, again, there was very little that was going to work. Again, the perfect storm happened in so many different ways, the time and day and all that for Kerrville. So the idea is this: you have to figure out somehow that you can monitor the height of that water. There's a very simple method. If you told me that you couldn't afford it, and I don't know what the price is you were looking at, I'd have told you, could you plant a telephone pole deep in the ground, way down there, put some concrete down in there, right? And then, it may get lost somewhere in the mix, while the flood's going on, but once it'll have to rise up a certain. So if you gradiate that as to what height the water is, and you put a weather-resistant webcam on it, I guess security cam, webcam, whatever, right? And you can see from your county office, again, dispatch 911, or 911. 911 can sit there. Something up. Oh, wait, 9/11 came up. I'm trying to see if I see anything. All right, something's going on 9/11. Somebody's planning and plotting something. All right, but 911, the dispatch can watch that camera, and they should be able to read. Again, you have to set it up so it'll work, right? But they should be able to read the height of the water. Again, maybe the best way to do it is just color. So you just keep changing the color so you don't have to read numbers or anything like that. So you'll know. And again, you could actually code it to if it goes to red, then you have to, or orange or whatever, then you have to evacuate. So upstream, you got to figure it out. You put some telephone poles in and you paint it whatever color. You just got to make sure you can see in the storm. When the storm hits it, you can still see it. So you may want to put a couple cameras in different angles. That won't be that expensive. I mean, it costs money, but probably like, the county could do most of it on their own. Right. Probably you can do all of it probably. So you need to sell a cellular camera. It's not the cheapest in the world, but a couple cell lines. And then you just watch that pole, and once it hits the red, then you evacuate. Or the orange, whatever you want to do. If you make it green, yellow, orange, yellow, or orange, red. Right. So all you got to do is know or you can put like, one every 10 miles or whatever you want to do. Right. And you can monitor the height of that water. You just need some sort of graduation to compare it to. So you don't even have to wait for the sensors. You as soon as it gets a little dry out there, you get your telephone poles, and you got to calculate what you're talking. Know what you're talking about when it comes to what level of water rises requiring an evacuation. And you paint that pole accordingly, or actually you could pound it in and then paint it accordingly, or actually dig it in. Actually, you have to. Oh, no, you could actually do it at the side of the river, right? Right. We would have known it was rising that much. Right. That'd have been enough to evacuate. Right. You don't even really need the sensors. You just need a camera that can watch a graduated pole, and then it'll tell. I think some places may even use that. I think to regulate what the water is, whether they open the dam or whatever it is. Right. But again, as far as a rainstorm and being able to see, I don't know. I mean, obviously you can make it. Oh, yeah, you can make it hooded. Right, at least like any other security camera, that'll work. Put in one of those boxes. Right. Could even put a defroster in there. Ooh. So if you can't get the sensors in, you just get a pole. Make sure it's in the ground real good. Right. When it recedes, you'll be able to do it. Right. And then put a camera on it. When it goes up above a certain line. So if I was like working for Carroll County, I'd say, well, no, we don't need a sensor. We can do it this way. Sapper leader style. Right. But you might lose, if it floods real bad like it did, you might lose the pole, but, it already had its use, Right. But again, it could get a double flood, and then again, it may not. Right. So you'll put it at the side, right? Side of the lot, right by the bank, because you could probably do that pretty quick, right? Or by the bank. And then, really, if you do it right, you could have like some cop drive and look at it, right? Some deputy, hey, deputy, go look at the pole. How high is it? How high is the water? Well, you can look at it from high ground. If you do it right, you'll be able to do it from high ground. You might need some, you can probably do it on his phone, just enlarge it. Magnify it with his phone. Ooh, it just blew the red. All right, start evacuating. Like we all carry observation devices now. Sorry. So Ryan Walters actually got a focus now. It's starting to work. He woke up somehow. Like, well, we're going to pay for lunches. Before they'd be like, oh, those liberals want us to pay for their lunches. So he took that one over. No, we'll pay for the lunches. Yeah. See, that's what Jesus would do, right? Right. So then he can score points now. Touchdown. That's that Oklahoma education guy. He actually looks better now because you want to feed kids. God's like, okay, yeah, we'll feed kids. We're not hear that before, especially orphans. No, they're not orphans. They're welfare kids. So you got to watch what you say. Right. You lose God's protection. No, God didn't tell me to pray for New Mexico. Maybe somebody else is. I don't know. You got a lot of priests there. Are they praying? Is anybody online praying for New Mexico? Or if I don't go there, it doesn't happen? God didn't tell me to do it. I don't do it. Right. Well, that's the way it's got to work because you took all my extra power away throughout my life. Or I could pray for everything, no matter what. Right. That's what I hear is happening. They're trying to replace Bondi, but the person, like people like Loomer, think somebody's going to be put in that they, like MAGA, but or it might still be MAGA, but it's a setup. The person's going to be put in will be a disruptor, right? No, it's pretty explained. She had a bunch of files on her desk, and she'll have it on my desk because she just assumed that the list was in there. And yeah, there's probably people affiliated with Epstein. We know Dershowitz was affiliated with Epstein. We know, that CIA director had been there, Clinton had been there. So again, when you say client list, he was a guy that did investments. I mean, that client list. We know he was affiliated with Chase Bank. I mean, right. So I don't know if he helped with those investigations, but I've been tracking those investigations for years, trying to launch a few of my own. But I knew right around when Epstein got popped, there was a whole bunch of cases that moved to fruition, especially in Europe. And I know he traveled. There was rumors that he traveled to Europe for that. Right. So I don't know. Well, you're not cops, right? I believe somebody psychologically operated the girl that killed herself. Right. I don't remember her name, but the victim that killed herself. No doubt. But I don't know who it is. She may not even known she was being operated. Right. Now, she didn't kill herself just by happenstance. Somebody did her. All right. Same people that killed that guy that was in DHS. What was his name? Whacked his head and then he took himself out. Thanks, Larry. What's the governor of Arkansas? It's the governor of Arkansas, isn't it? What's she doing there? No, like I told you, Epstein was just a dupe. Right. He was there to dirty people. And then when they were going to, let's say they were trying to get a bill passed, or they were trying to pass a bill they didn't want passed, they'd start running that information past senators, congressmen, whoever it is, presidents. You can see them when they try to drive Trump crazy. Right. They go after Melania sometimes. Right. That's all that is. Well, it's any spy agency. I mean, they all were tracking it. I'm sure Russians were tracking that. maybe the ones that set it up. I don't know. You're saying Mossad, but maybe not. Right. Mossad tracked it, I'm sure. You got the goods on somebody in the royal family, yeah. I mean, doesn't mean they used it. Right. They had dossiers on all that. Right. Well, I know what they do to put people into it. They tried to put me into it, and I turned them in when I could. I mean, I could have turned them in earlier, but I had no idea where I was when I was in the government. And they still probably didn't do anything about it. Right. See, that's what you were supposed to be doing all along. You weren't supposed to let them build all that stuff up. All this operation in where? In Lebanon, southern Lebanon. That's what you're supposed to be doing the whole time, including in Gaza. Otherwise, you're part of the problem. Right? Well, she goes, Meryl Loomer says, so many people are so quick to abandon President Trump. What do you think you're doing? Again, if they had actually even just protected me and let me have a protected life instead of attacking my life, I would have never said anything. Because it wouldn't have been nothing to say. You let Deep State kill me on his watch, and we're part of it. Right? The first administration. Now look here. So many people are so quick to abandon President Trump. What do you think you just did? All right, they reached Moscow. What do we do with the weather? Floods are particularly intense. The reason the Highland Lakes were constructed. Limestone bedrock beneath very shallow layer of soil. Rushes could be down into waterways. Yeah, we use lime to pack, substrate for airfields. So yeah, right. We're gonna make a field expedient airfield. They bring in a bunch of lime. Yeah, I can build field expedient airfields. We did it one time before at Fort Campbell. Actually, we only had it. We were 12Bs. We only had to construct the tower. We had to build like a tower out of burlap and wood. We sat in there, and Sergeant Pena had the hot peppers, the little chili peppers from Mexico and stuff. We made a bunch of chili out of MRE stuff. Waiting for them to finish the airfield. We had a stove because the platoon sergeant was with us. Then we had to fly. I think that's when we flew into Indiana next, I think. And we left and flew into Indiana, and then we had to, fight back to Fort Campbell or something. They landed at C-130 and then took off. Just to see, show that it worked. Right. I'm like, okay, now, we don't get to be here anymore. But when we got back, like at a certain point, it all showed up again because they cut it down. The tower, they took a piece of the tower as shelter, put it in like the platoon sergeant's dump truck or something. So we went out and we fought all these battles and got, that's when I froze and you got like soaking wet and it was just mud on everything. And And then we like fought our way back. At a certain point, the platoon sergeant shows up again, and he's got the stove and he's got the shelter set up. So we get in there, we start eating again and drinking, cocoa mocha. I've been walking for a while. What's the Vatican guy there? I'm praying for stuff like that. You see, what's his name? What's that guy's name? Amarth. Father Gabriel Amarth, I think it was. He was an exorcist some years back. And he was good for the church because he got to the point to at least saying 80% of possession is spells being put on that person. I believe it's 100%. But again, if you're putting spells on other people, you could be possessed because of that. You open up that. So maybe that was the 20% he was talking about. I don't know. But it's all it is, right? It could be a will. You don't have to do an incantation. It could be willing something, right? Just having that personal will out there and having status and money and stuff like that. So that was good for the church because the church then released a lot of people from the blame at that point. And again, that's what the scriptures do, Right. So I don't know if they went backwards on that because I haven't seen much coming from the church on that since him, because that would reduce the ability to actually heal anything. Thank you, Larry. The reason that a lot of this is going on the way it's going on because people freak out. Right. When they get deported. So they know, that they have to protect themselves and other people when they do this. Right. Again, part of it is by giving them false hope. Right. They had spikes. There were spikes in your vehicle. Right. Somebody did that to my vehicle, something like that. Where is that? That's some nice houses. Her apartments over there.
When the statement was issued, at least 100 people were confirmed as having died due to the flooding, and others.
Reading church news. I guess it's LDS news. Thank you, Larry. So we can do those telephone poles, and we can paint the telephone poles and put a camera on, or even get an officer to observe it when we need to. We can assign an officer on some high ground to keep watch, flood watch. Right. I'll have to put that on Abbott's page. Thanks, Larry. You know what? The reality is, the closer you are to passing, the more you'll feel the second coming. Because you're going to see Jesus soon. That's why Nelson's talking about that. I'm not going to say he's going to die today, but getting up there in you. Right. Might be an addict. This transgender woman is attacking the line of officers. Right. Well, it's sad, but we didn't set this thing in motion. The Democrats did, and I warned them about that, like keeping track of how many were coming in and only bringing the number that you need to work, right? And then, of course, amnesty for anybody that can't work is if they're disabled and there's a legitimate claim and all that. There you go, Larry. Look at these fight videos. You know, it's weird how these floods are attacking like the recreation zones. Did you wheel anybody out of vacation or anything? I don't know. It's kind of weird. All right. So I got it. Well, we can get those poles in relatively fast. Oh my gosh. Well, the question is whether they know that extortion network exists, and that's why they want the officers doxxed. Well, because they're paranoid. They all committed crime. So if the officers don't listen to them, they're afraid maybe they'll be investigated if they're part of that. Right. That's why they want the officers doxxed. So they only do what they tell them they're allowed to do. Only investigate what they tell them they're allowed to investigate. All right, I got my hour walk on here. All right, stay peaceful. Praise God in all that you do. Praise God.